Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens. My name is Jordan, and with me today we have a great show consisting of Tommy Bechtold. How are you today, Tommy?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. And we have Ron with us today. How are you today, Ron?
I'm stoked, dude. I'm glad to be here with you. Is this the first time you and I have talked Star Wars since the end of Ahsoka?
Uh, maybe. I don't recall.
Because I think everything since has just been the Clone Wars, right?
All right.
Yeah. We were supposed to do the Mandalorian and Grogu one that you couldn't make.
Right.
Yeah. So we were going to talk that in Ahsoka Season 2 announcement, but you're right. Yeah, this is the first time since probably Ahsoka then. Or since
we got a good one.
Since the Phantom Menace thing we did, the watch along.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess at the top here, let me just say the news. Phantom Menace coming back to theaters on May 4th weekend. I never saw it in theaters, so I'm going. I've decided I'm going.
Oh, I did. Oh, did I ever see it? And I will also be going. And with a little more, a little older, a little probably less jaded than I was after seeing it as a teenager. I'm excited. May 4th, also Kentucky Derby Day. So, full day. You could really make a day of it.
Yeah.
May the horse be with you.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That's terrible.
Oh, my God. If every racetrack in the country doesn't have a May the Horse Be With You shirt as a giveaway for that, come on. That's perfect.
Goal.
So what we're doing today is a exercise of Star Wars What If. There was a rumor floating around, but we came up with this before the rumor of an episode idea we wanted to do, which was, hey, if around the time What If released, I was thinking, and I mentioned it on the post-credit one I did too. So Tommy, if you don't know, my friend and I did a episode that was called Adding Post-Credit Scenes to Star Wars.
Oh.
And we just kind of went through and pitched ideas for what a post-credit scene would be at the end of Star Wars films if they released today, right? If Phantom Menace released today, what would the post-credit scene be? Since every movie except Madame Web has these now.
Yeah.
No
Madame Web post-credit scene.
It would just be me rebuilding Darth Maul in the bottom of that pit. That would be the
just
hand.
hurriedly at work. Yes.
Yeah. So
my favorite character, mother.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it on there that I wanted to do a what if one, and it's kind of been in the back of my mind. But we're gonna pitch ideas and a little bit of detailed ideas on where that plot would go, if we do it. So what we'll do is we'll start with me. We'll go to Tommy. We'll go to Ron. Back to me. Back to Tommy. Back to Ron. We each have 2, and then if there's any just fun ideas or what if titles you have, we can always talk about them at the end.
Great.
All right, so should we just jump in?
Let's begin.
Yeah.
All right.
Just quick before we start, because we do this. We do this all the time. We have to remind people to like and subscribe.
Yes.
We try not to, just because it's every channel does it, but
it's the lifeblood. Are you kidding me? You better like and subscribe, or I'll come find you.
Yes. see, now you better. Now you better. Now that you know Tommy B's on your tail, it's only a matter of time.
I want to see a channel that's don't bother. Don't like or subscribe. We don't give a shit.
That's usually mine. Yeah, that's usually my channel. All right. So what I have here is, what if Luke joined the dark side on
that's part of the big what if,
second
right?
Death Star. Yeah,
that's good.
On the second Death Star. So what I have is, obviously there'd be no fall of the Empire. So in my example, kind of what I would think is when he's swinging at Palpatine and Vader blocks him, if Vader just kind of lets him do it, right? And then he takes out Palpatine and it becomes a father-son empire run together. And I have a nice line here that kind of matches with the original trilogy, though. Vader will say there is another, and referring to Palpatine having children, and they have to go look and hunt down these children to try to stop Palpatine from ever rising again. Poe is never conceived because his parents conceived him on Endor after the Death Star blew up.
Oh.
So, yeah, some comic lore for
There's
everyone.
Some real ramifications here.
But I have years later, Rey is still born to Palpatine's son and is in hiding. and they're worried that Vader and Luke are going to hunt down the rest of the bloodline. So meanwhile, the Mandalorian never meets Grogu, and he continues taking Outer Rim bounties, and he's now older because we're kind of time jumping a bit past the Mandalorian era. And he sits in a cantina on Navarro, which is never cleaned up by Grief Karga. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
And yeah, when he's approached by a man in a hood, he has a job for him: smuggle cargo out of the system and out of any Imperial presence. Mando follows the man to the ship, and his cargo is a young Rey Palpatine. Meanwhile, an older Ahsoka is doing her thing, working with the bare bones of any rebellion, which was crushed by Vader and Luke. And this is who Mando must deliver a young Rey to. But when he drops Rey off, he has an attachment, and so does she. And now Ahsoka is weary of training her due to this. It's also revealed that a teenage boy is with Ahsoka. It's revealed to be Ben Solo. Leia and Han did survive and have been in hiding ever since, and they entrusted Ahsoka with their child. So Ben and Rey have to team up, and when they're older, they take on Luke and Vader and restore balance to the galaxy.
Oh my God. This is awesome. I don't want to do mine anymore. Mine is like the book report where someone goes up and just nails it, and mine is like 3 sentences of like, would it be cool? That is fantastic. That's fabulous. Oh my God.
Yeah, I like the kind of almost like generational ramifications too. It's like it starts with the fact that the Empire never goes away, and then from then essentially is just kind of like a rat race of Luke and Vader kind of looking for Leia at that point.
Right. Yeah. Like looking for Leia, looking for the Palpatines. Mr. Palpatine, I guess, is what we'd call him.
Mr.
And,
Ready Palpatine.
Yeah. So that's the so it kind of became, and I was just trying to figure out cool ways to intertwine other characters to really make this, because one thing that really inspired me is watching What If Season 2.
Yeah.
And you get some episodes that are like what if Peter Quill attacked him as a kid, and then you have like all these random Avengers that were popping up, making up this weird team. And I'm like, that's kind of what I was going for, is like, okay, so how can we get Mando to fit into this? And almost like parallel Mando's journey he had with Grogu, with Rey, but then also having Ahsoka already kind of taking up Ben, and then getting that Force dyad together at a younger age to take on Vader and Luke. I don't know. I feel like that'd be a really cool thing to see.
It would also be interesting to see what actually does end up happening to Grogu then. Like after he gets saved by, I forget his character's name, but Ahmed Best that we saw.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah.
So like what becomes of him after that?
Right.
Like he's obviously still got a lineage to the Force and all that. So like that's a whole nother kind of what if in its own right.
For sure.
Yeah, true.
All right, Tommy, let's hear it.
Also, Kellyanne Beck, I believe, is who you're talking about.
Oh, Kellyanne,
yes.
Off the top of my head there.
Off the dome.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, mine is a little more of a justifier, justifying tying up some of the plot holes, and that is, what if Chewbacca the entire time had been Force sensitive, and essentially this creates Han Solo has his entire adult life been surrounded by Force sensitive individuals, just kind of
he doesn't believe it,
and he still is like, I'm not sure. But I think like there's a lot of things in Han Solo, both in the comics and in the movies, that require him to be incredibly lucky. He gets out of a lot of scrapes that are like just by the thinnest of margins. Never tell me the odds. Well, what if the odds were always in his favor because he had a 7'5" Wookiee who was influencing, the world around him via the Force? Now, where it gets for me more interesting, I would love this reveal to not ever obviously come in the first episodes 4 through 6. I want it to come in The Force Awakens, and I want it to be him first not stopping Kylo Ren from killing Han Solo, because he shoots him with his bowcaster and he wings him, right? Like he misses on, clearly with his skills as a bowcaster artist, he could have killed Kylo Ren then and there. But the implication, the off the screen things are that he was there for his like childhood and he didn't want to kill this kid that he had an attachment to. Although we never get that explained. And Kylo Ren never in any of the movies shows any sort of deference at all to him or acknowledges like.
I don't think. I was gonna say I don't think he acknowledges.
Like
him.
I mean, even if he just referred to him as his dad's dog or something like really insulting, just like this is where I think the fundamental issue of like the fact that they flipped Kylo Ren's story from the original notes, where Kylo Ren was going to start off more torn up by the sides of the Force and end up fanatically dark side, would have been way better, because instead it's like the entire time you're kind of like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like he's kind of like he doesn't really seem to hate anyone. He kind of just hates who he's like his lineage. He hates Luke. Basically, he hates one person. He hates Luke. His father, he think is kind of like pities or looks at it as like inferior. His mother, we don't get a fully, probably due to Carrie Fisher's death, we never get a full. We get a few moments with them, but like mostly shot through clever editing and voiceover. So my thought would be that that Chewie has to use the Force to kind of keep Rey alive and prevent Rey from being vulnerable to the dark side. So it's like if Chewie had just if Chewie had allowed or killed Kylo Ren or let Han Solo live, all of these things would have taken Rey off of her path that made her ultimately the like savior character. So I think Chewie was kind of like the puppet, the string puller, because the Jedi are like, I mean,
the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, he is like a Phantom Menace. He's like a giant Phantom Menace. So yeah, I don't know, not as layered and as a perfect circle, but I'd love to see Chewie like do a roar and then like a rock fall or something like that.
What I think is funny about that is I'm just picturing like the scenes from like Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon like makes the dice turn to have this, and I'm just picturing Chewie doing that in like Canto Bite casinos to get money. He's like with Han, he's like, oh yeah, we won again.
he's just like manipulating the sabacc cards, even though they're all already cheating at it, or like
to win the Falcon.
He's just reversing. He's reversing everyone's cheating.
Exactly. He's like retying the shoe. Yeah, exactly. I just want a little force using Chewie is my goal.
I like it. I also think it's funny the idea of like Chewie listening to Han for like decades just talk about how he doesn't believe in the Force. Right. Meanwhile, he's just sitting there like, all right.
I mean, his frustration with Han does imply that there's like something Han isn't understanding about him, right? Like he's constantly like smacking his head and being like,
Exactly. No, I like it. I dig it.
Well, you mentioned the Chewbacca and Kylo Ren thing, and that is something that always stuck out to me as very interesting. You know, when he roars when Han is dead and he starts shooting Kylo and at Kylo and stuff, he's pissed. It's like, imagine you were raising this kid with your best friend and he turned to the dark side and kills your best friend. It's like there's so many interesting ideas that are not fully explored in Star Wars as a whole. Like the same thing with like Darth Vader never acknowledging 3PO. That's because it wasn't originally written as that way. But now you sit there and I sometimes sit there and think, what's he thinking? Like, does he ever think like R2 and C-3PO are against me? I must be doing something wrong.
No kidding.
He's
like, my childhood best friends hate me now. Like they're actively interloping against. Yeah, I think there's like, I also feel like weirdly, the newer movies are more afraid to treat Chewie as like a humanoid. Like they're like, it feels like the original trilogy almost is the most expressive of Chewie as like a basically a very hairy like a human. Like he's he's a Wookiee, but he's like that's like a humanoid class. Whereas like in the brand new the most recent trilogy, they're kind of like, yeah, he's kind of he's basically a dog that can shoot a gun, and like
they almost blew him up.
Yeah, except for they corrected the mistake of having him hug
the metal. Yeah,
and he hugged Leia in the second one, I think, or something. So the first one they come back from their big victory, and like she just walks by. It's like, oh yeah, wait. you guys have no history together. There's no reason you'd be happy to see him back alive. Like, go hug these strangers you just met.
Yeah. There's a lot of that
Yeah.
in all of these. I'll say the prequels and the sequels, where
that could probably be traced back to like George Lucas being like on the record as not very good at like attachment. So like he's like he's like, I'm not very good at emoting, so I will have the through line of this be like, you can show you love people a lot of different ways. You don't need to hug them. So
right.
Yeah. Anyway,
but no, yeah. To your point about Chewie, that was a good one too. What instantly popped into my head there, and I just wanted to mention it so I didn't lose it. In 4, 5, and 6, it was almost like Groot vibes a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like everybody still understood him, and he was still like very much like a part of things. Whereas in these newer movies, to your point, very much kind of there for the nostalgia pop.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, they did all of that with all the, like, I would say the droids and Chewie.
Yeah. They all signed Legends contracts in WWE's. They're like, you guys only got to work one pay-per-view a year and show up at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
My biggest complaint with the sequels has always just been the one that they went in without a plan, but two, the treatment of like 3PO and R2. And thankfully 3PO got more to do in Rise, but like the fact that R2 is under a blanket for most of Force Awakens, I was fine with a bit, because I'm like, okay, that's one movie. But then when it gets sidelined where he's just sitting next to a dying Leia in the third one, and you're like, we couldn't find something to do with R2.
Well, in other news, the C-3PO one-man show coming to Saudi Arabia in the end of 2024.
All right,
just like the Undertaker.
Yeah,
he's got that Legends.
He's gonna be a crowd. I actually saw. This is just such a like brag. I went to Celebration in London in 2016, I think it was, and I saw Anthony Daniels' one-man show at Celebration, and it was it was hilarious. He's really funny. He's also like not humble at all, which is fine. Like, but he's like very, very impressed by his accomplishments, which he should be. But it was like the whole show is kind of just like, isn't it awesome? And like kind of him like looking down on the other actors because they weren't classically trained. It was like him and Sir Alec Guinness. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to another what if here.
All right, I'm up. So it shouldn't surprise anybody who listens to this show that my first one is about Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Mine is, what if Darth Maul killed Obi-Wan instead of Qui-Gon Jinn? So in my head when I was thinking about this, like when you watch The Phantom Menace, and you hadn't seen any Star Wars or anything before that, didn't know who Obi-Wan was and his importance and all that, it would almost be more of like the natural story progression for Obi-Wan to have been the one to die there.
Right.
Because he didn't really get much shine in the movie overall. No. At least not until the end, until that scene.
Right.
And it would have created a lot of sort of like internal debate with Qui-Gon of like, do I take on another Padawan knowing that I just lost mine in this way? Like, or would it embolden him perhaps even more to be like, I have to get it right this time. And like, this dude's the chosen one. We gotta, we gotta make sure what happens to Obi-Wan doesn't happen to him. You also kind of think about the later movies in the prequels in terms of like, maybe would Qui-Gon and Yoda have been enough to stop Dooku in Attack of the Clones? And like all of these moments that kind of were, I guess, for lack of a better term, sort of like puzzle pieces being moved by Palpatine. Like, would they, with Qui-Gon still alive, instead of a young, not up and coming Obi-Wan, but one who definitely still had a lot to learn, like, would they have been able to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that ultimately played out in the second and third movie? And then to just shoot it down a little further, what happens with Maul after that? I mean, everything up through Clone Wars is probably the same. But like when you get into Rebels territory, there's no Obi-Wan there to kill him anymore.
Right.
So like what happens with that? Like, does he just kind of still do the same thing, but just sort of like drift off into the sand, never to be seen again sort of thing? Or like, who knows? But yeah, there was a lot of things that went through my head with that.
Yeah, I guess it would like kind of fall to Ahsoka, right? Like that would be the natural, like Ahsoka kills him. But or what's his? Why can't I remember his name? Kanan.
Oh, Kanan Jarrus. Yeah,
Kanan Jarrus. Kanan Jarrus revenge for being, because he blinded him, right? Was it him that blinded him, or was it it's in that temple?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yes,
Vader. They were chasing Vader, right? They were, it was like,
no, that was I'm right on that, Jordan. Right? It was the Vader stuff with Ahsoka in the Sith temple. That wasn't when Kanan.
That's not how he became blind. I kind of forget how it happened. I just rewatched it before Ahsoka.
I'm pretty sure it's Maul blinds him. Like, it's like
I think I'm almost positive you're right as well, Tom.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love it.
What I think is interesting is, I think Dave Filoni would agree with you when you're talking about, if Qui-Gon was still there, how it would change everything. Dave Filoni said, I think it was in the behind the scenes footage for Mando season 1 or 2, but when they did those director roundtables, he says, what's at stake in the Duel of the Fates is how Anakin is going to turn out, because Qui-Gon is different from the rest of the Jedi. And he says he's fighting for Anakin. That's why it's the Duel of the Fates. It's the fate of this child. And depending on how this fight goes, his life is going to be dramatically different. So Qui-Gon loses and the father figure is gone, because he knew what it meant to take the kid away from his mother when he had an attachment, and he's left with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan trains Anakin at first out of a promise, but not because he cares for him. He eventually does care for him, but as a brother, and he's not the father figure, and that's a failing for Anakin. He doesn't have the family he needs. He loses his mother in the next film, and he fails to promise to his mother, I will come back and save you. So he's completely vulnerable, and Star Wars is ultimately about family.
Well, there we go. Darth Maul is the reason that Darth Vader exists. So you heard it from Dave Filoni.
I like it. Maul. It's all about Maul. It's Maul about Maul.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Ooh.
Got him on me.
Love it.
Yes, that's it's tough to kind of do it on the camera because it's all twisty.
I like it. Fabulous. Fabulous. I'm all about it. I like that. I love that idea. I mean, it's certainly it's that one sends huge ripples through the canonical story. Absolutely.
Through the galaxy.
Through the galaxy, far, far away, indeed. All right.
All right, Jordan. What you got next for us?
All right, let's go to the next one here. So I have what if the Sith did not create the rule of 2? And instead, they still had their Sith Empire, and the Jedi had the rule of 2. So in this, I have it as like currently Darth Plagueis is the Emperor, and it's kind of taking place around that Episode 1 time frame. And his apprentice is Palpatine at the time. But what we also see is that a lot of the Jedi from the prequels are now filling out the Sith ranks, because since they have the larger empire, they had the larger reach. So when they get these Force sensitives that they're sensing, they go out and join the Sith Empire. So people like Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon are now in the ranks of this Sith Empire, and we can have fun little twists with, their looks, what they're wearing, and just like really cool different portrayals of these characters that we usually get in like comic books when it comes to like Marvel and stuff, where you can take a villain in Marvel and do a what if that they're a hero or vice versa.
Yeah.
And they have so many comic books like that. It'd be cool to kind of get that with some of these characters. The Jedi I have was, at one point, it was Yoda and Dooku. And Dooku stayed with the light. And when Yoda died, Dooku trained Qui-Gon. And then when Dooku died, Qui-Gon trained Obi-Wan. And that's where the current 2 Jedi are, as now they have to take on the whole Sith Empire. And we also still get like Jango Fett in this as a bounty hunter still. And he's enlisted by the Empire to track down Jedi and Jedi sympathizers. And like Bail Organa is still a Jedi sympathizer as a Senate member. Stuff like that, as we try to see if Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan can take down the whole Sith Empire.
I feel like it's like if you made that episodically, it would be like old 80s Transformers or G.I. Joe episodes where the biggest enemy to the Sith Empire was their inability to not screw each other over. over like grabbing power grabs. Like it would just be like absolute power corrupting absolutely or whatever, and like them just being like constantly dealing with insurrections and usurpers, like trying to grab the top reign. But I think is the spirit of like a true like Marvel what if, like really flip it on its head. Like what if two things were just reversed from each other? So I love it.
Yeah. And also like it kind of feels like I mean, they got to put it. So it feels almost like those first three movies would have the vibe of 4, 5, and 6 in terms of the Jedi being like on the run and being hunted, and kind of like the outlaws. So there would be a lot of that tone kind of carried back into the first three if they had gone that way as well.
And then like their secret agent that they have working with them and getting intel is Dexter Jetster.
Yeah, hell yeah.
In Dex's Diner.
Yeah.
I don't know
With
who
his
the hell
diner. Oh my god.
Yes.
Please.
I'm also just loving the idea of Samuel L. Jackson with a red lightsaber.
Yes.
Yeah. He's like,
Like,
damn it, I said purple.
And red would be like a beautiful magenta, right? You'd have a magenta lightsaber.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Like a nice 80s, like hot pink.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I'm just picturing them wearing like all black, you know?
Absolutely.
Looking fresh.
Sick. I love it.
Be sick.
So,
all right.
So my next what if, my final what if is more of just like I think a situational how the episodes 4 and 6 could change if. So we find out in the comics, Boba Fett, I believe, tells Darth Vader that his kids survived, and that's revealed in a comic book, I believe.
Yes.
And that sense, Vader has awareness that his children are alive. Now, one is hidden, quite literally the definition of hidden, although after the subsequent live-action Star Wars TV show makes it really hard to believe that Vader had no idea that Luke was on Tatooine, a planet that he seemed to visit every other month or so, and like has the Force. But the other one is hidden in plain sight of him by changing her last name, Leia Organa. And I don't, I think my what if is what if Vader had discovered the existence of Leia alive first and attempted to turn her to the dark side. And I feel like it's an easier turn because ultimately Luke becomes fanatically light side, right? Like Luke is light side over everything. Leia is the one who doesn't even finish her Jedi training. She's just like, I'm not for this. So if anyone's mind seems more corruptible, it's hers in that situation, or at least.
And she's a politician.
And she's a crooked. She's a crooked politician. She's bought and paid for. No, not to mention a woman. Oh God, 3 men can't say that on a podcast. No, kidding. Of course, don't mean that at all. Every woman in my life is so much smarter than me. It's not funny. They save me on a daily basis, but. I just love the idea.
Go see Madam Web in theaters tomorrow.
Yeah, go see Madam Web as an act of feminism and a war crime. But I think I just like the idea of. I always thought it was weird in the New Hope that he didn't sense anything. Like he I guess maybe that's not how the Force works. But in my mind, it's like we get like an inkling. It seems like Force users can sense other Force users, right? Like that's one.
They have beaten us over the head with that. That's not just an assumption on your part. They have at every turn they have
So it's like
how many projects
he's got her. Like, they capture her ship, and it's like he doesn't go like he's not at least like whoa, this girl's flying off the charts with Force abilities or whatever. And I think it's probably had more to do with in 1970s.
What you have to do is. You have to take a blood sample and then run it to see how many midichlorians they have.
It's true.
And then
it's true.
And then
It would have been amazing if he had someone administer one of those like insulin blood sugar to her. And then there's just like a 5-minute montage of the lab going through it all. He's got like goggles on.
Stormtroopers. Yep.
I love
some like 80s music playing in the background.
But I feel like then like Luke kind of I two things. One, I don't think we ever got any Leia. The reveal of them being brother and sister came in the third movie, right? Or was it second?
Yeah.
It's but it's like
Return,
it feels like probably that era, they're like, we're not going to let the girl learn the cool Force stuff too. Like this, that era of filmmaking. And then like much later, it was like, no, you should definitely have both genders doing the Force. That will appeal to a way wider audience. But I digress on that point. But my thought is it would be interesting to have Luke kind of still seeking out this like place in the universe without the threat of his father being this like one of the most feared men in the galaxy, and just maybe learning from Obi-Wan Kenobi and more time to train. Maybe he's more powerful, and in the end, it's him and Vader fighting over the soul of Leia. Would be my ultimate ending of that. And then, of course, Vader dies like a dog, and
like a dog.
Vader lying like a dog, but
dainty Darth. Wow.
And then Leia is ultimately brought back to the light side of the Force, and maybe that is why she refuses to finish any sort of training, because she's like, I already went to the dark side once. It's like someone who like has like a hard drug addiction in their teens. Yeah, and they got to be totally sober. They're like, well, you could probably have a light beer, but like that could lead to crystal meth. So. So no more crystal meth for Leia. That's my what if. What if Darth had discovered Leia was his daughter before he discovered Luke was his son and attempted to turn her to the dark side? Put that on a mug.
There you go. Well, there's also really there's another interesting. Yeah, there's another interesting aspect to that, and it's like, what if Darth Vader was obviously way more evil than Baylan Skoll, but part of me almost wonders if there would have been like a Baylan and Shin thing there, where it's like maybe she senses, oh, you're getting weak, and like, and then she becomes even more emboldened to the dark side, and like maybe she's the one who kills him, and then it leads to this whole thing with her like looking for a new apprentice. Maybe she tries to get Luke to be her apprentice, and then like maybe that's how they end up duking it out. There's a lot of ways that could have gone. So I like that a lot.
I like it. I like that.
I'm just picturing now, like, he finds her at, like, the Obi-Wan age level of Leia. Like, where she's, like, 5. And he's like, you're now going to be
oh, my God, side. I know. the Obi-Wan live-action series just kind of, like, throws such a weird monkey wrench into a lot of, like, Star Wars theories, because you're like, oh, wait, he spent all that time with Leia? Like, and then again, because obviously in A New Hope, they hadn't mapped any of that out, clearly. It's like, they're just like, hi. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, I think they made it work a bit more than I thought they would, when she seemed to have some sort of recollection of who Obi-Wan was.
Yeah, I mean, you're my only hope.
In A New Hope.
Yeah, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only... I guess it just, like, the transmissions are way more emotional than their actual meeting each other in person. Like,
like, I don't even know if did they even really meet each
other?
Well,
aren't they kind of running away at the end together? Isn't everyone running away together at the end, I think? Or am I correct?
No, because Obi-Wan's off doing his own thing.
Oh, you're right. Then, you're right. They never see each other. You're right.
Gives up himself to Vader.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think they ever
got the opportunity. My God, maybe they would have.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I have, not blind spots, but I have like calloused memories, not calloused in like a bad way, callous, but like hardened memories of a version of Star Wars that does not exist, which is like watching it for the first time in the 80s and like how I absorbed it then. To this day, no matter how many times I watch A New Hope, I still have like my original viewing of Star Wars is where I'm like pulling things from a lot of times. And it's like totally like that. You're absolutely 100% right. They don't meet each other at that point in the movie. And I'm like, and you would have told me, I'm like, yeah, she was hanging out just to the right of camera while they were fighting to the death. So anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So we're down to my last one here.
Let's do it.
This one also mentions Rey a lot, so I'm sure that fans will love this one. What if Rey turned to the dark side? Big Rey fan, by the way, just to get that one out there. I have a lightsaber over there. I'm not going to.
I do. I'm a Rey fan as well, and I'm glad that I hope that movie actually gets made and it is fabulous.
You and me both, bro. I really hope so. They kind of scared me a little bit, saying that the Mandalorian movie was going to be the next one.
I know
the whole thing. Was hammered home. The Rey movie's the next one. The Rey movie's the next one. So who the hell knows? Fingers crossed. I mean, Daisy Ridley had some kind of quotes about it and liking where the story was going.
Yeah.
So
They probably were probably writing season 4 of Mandalorian?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a season 4 as well, right? Or are they just doing the movie?
They didn't say. They haven't said.
My thought.
Sorry, the common thought is that season 4 is getting turned into the movie.
Yeah,
that they're going to streamline the season.
That's what I was kind of thinking. Is they're probably like, look, we have like 2.5 hours of stories for season 4. We ultimately need 3.5 to make it a TV season. Let's just make this movie, and we have everybody signed up. It's probably not that hard to like convert their contracts over to film from TV.
I think it's mainly
thinking the financial difference you're making off of a Star Wars movie. Right. Even the worst ones were sniffing $1 billion.
Absolutely,
something you throw on Disney Plus. Right. I mean, they're these projects are hemorrhaging.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a few things I think that led to it. One, when they had to let go of Lindelof from Star Wars.
Yes.
And they had to look for somebody else because the guy who's writing that now, I think, is working on his Peaky Blinders movie. So. He's doing both, so I think it's kind of like the script's not ready. And then you have season 4 scripts laying around, and they need a movie. And Grogu makes billions in merchandise, and they're like, all right, this is the movie, because we don't have to wait for a script.
Right.
This is going to go, and then we'll give time for the Rey script to get worked on, and then that can be the next one after it, and we don't have to rush it. And I feel like that's probably the best steps that they can take for it right now, honestly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And it just Star Wars was born for the movies. The more things that we can get in the theaters as opposed to drop it on Disney Plus.
I agree. Even when we used to be lucky enough to go to the premiere screenings of the shows, it was so much better to watch them on a big screen. It was so much more fun.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway.
All right. So what if Rey turned to the dark side? It would have been in Rise of Skywalker in that the obvious moment. And I almost kind of wonder if we would have got like a Jedi Sith like swap, because at that point Kylo was still on his way there anyway. So like seeing Rey turn to the dark side and side with Palpatine and all that, is he strong enough to beat them both, which is debatable. But would that also have been enough to get him to like turn back to the light side of the Force at that point? Would he have been able to, or I should say, would he be the one kind of reforming the Jedi Order now in this movie that we're going to get with Rey, assuming that is the plot that they go with? Would it be him kind of ushering in the new era of Star Wars like we expect this Rey movie to? I also think, and I wouldn't have done this, but I think him taking the Skywalker name at the end of that would have been received at least a little better, just because he was at least Leia's son.
Right.
So there's like actual family lineage there. And I think it would have also almost been a cool way for him to kind of have to wear the sins of his past by taking that name. You know what I mean? With everything we saw in those movies and the stuff with Luke and all that, and however things ended up shaking out with Rey and Palpatine and all that, it would have been cool for him to kind of like, take the name to honor the Skywalkers, but also to kind of wear the scars of all the bad things he's done.
Yeah, I love it. I wish
not quite as in depth as my first one. But.
I wish I like the idea of Kylo Ren's character so much, and I just wanted it to be like when he finally did turn back to Ben Solo. The first viewing, I'm like, yeah, all right. And then the second viewing, I'm like, this guy's he's killed so many people. It's not like Darth Vader breathing his last breath and being like, oh shit, I sucked. Sorry, Luke, be good now. Take my helmet off and let me look at you. It's like, he's out there, cracking jokes and being like loose and funny. It's like, I don't know, man. You're kind of like at the minimum, a massive war criminal. Like
literally the movie before, blow that piece of junk out of
exactly.
Like it was very, and like there was some seeds of it, like his and Rey's relationship in that movie. Obviously, this stuff where like maybe Han began to put the cracks in that armor in the first one, even though he ended up killing him anyway. But to your point, even still, it was not nearly like set up well enough to how drastic the turn was.
It was a hard pivot, as they say, but a pivot that would have made softer if this what if had been a reality.
Exactly.
If only they would have hired us.
Yes. Yeah. It would have been like kind of an interesting thing. So like Palpatine turns Rey to the dark side and Kylo's on the dark side.
Right.
But then Kylo has to go to the light side and then brings Rey back to the light side. So it would
make sense to his character kind of being a little bit of a bitch if he was like, all right, fine. You pick her? Then I'm light side now. Then I will be on the light side, and I'll be the best light side Jedi of all time.
Like the Always Sunny meme. I'm playing both sides, so I always come out.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder, like, with how their Force dyad thing works. Like, what if they both have to be on opposing sides, like, all the time?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, as soon as she turns dark, like, he has no choice. It just immediately is like a light switch, and he's like,
his lightsaber is just blue.
My uncle wasn't trying to kill me. I did misremember that. Oh,
yeah,
nuts! I killed him.
I did block that out. Yeah,
I exhausted him to death.
Amazing. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it.
I love it.
Did anybody have anything that they came up with but couldn't dive into and was like, "Oh, this idea doesn't really work"? Because I had one. I had, what if Han died in the carbonite? I started working on that one. And I was like, I don't know where to take this. And I moved on to the Rule of Two one after that.
I guess like any idea that I would have would be more like just inserting characters into specific time frames. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I would have loved to, and this one's a fucking like, oh, damn it, I can't get through one show without dropping an F-bomb.
That's okay.
Like this one's a layup, but like, what if Ahsoka was in the prequels? And obviously we have that in Clone Wars, but to be able to see that in live action would be really cool. So just all kinds of stuff like that.
But that's why that moment in Ahsoka was one of the best moments when she's like when she's in the
world beyond the worlds.
Yeah. And she like is flashing back to the Clone Wars with Anakin. It's like, oh wow. This would have been sick.
Yeah, like we got like the tiniest little sliver of it on a soundstage. And by the way, still salty we didn't get Maul in that Siege of Mandalore scene. But another story for another day.
We got the Maul troopers, right? That was our big. Or we got the Maul soldiers.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
My only what if is what if Obi-Wan smoked death sticks rather than killed people who smoked death sticks. What if he was?
You don't want to go home and rethink your life. You want to give me all of.
What if he had a massive death stick addiction? That's
and Spice. He's just hanging out.
I just rewatched new Dune 3 years ago, old Dune, and I'm like, that's right. Spice is in every sci-fi universe. I mean, Dune it is the thing, but like the Spice runners on in Book of Boba Fett, that was all Spice driven, but Spice is no good, guys. Stay off Spice, please. For the love of God, both of you. Stay off Spice.
They're like, all right, they're in the writer's room. They're like, all right, everybody try this heroin and tell me the first thing that comes to mind. So we come up with an alternate name. They're like, ooh, spicy. Yeah.
Now smoke this cigarette. What do you think? Death stick. Now do this cocaine. What do you think? Jar Jar Binks.
I always, I really wanted to try to fit this guy in one of my what ifs too. This is the Crimson Corsair.
Oh yeah,
Sidon Athano. He's one of my favorite background characters in Star Wars, but I couldn't really figure out how to get him in one of these.
I like it.
Really left us on a bang there, Jordan.
I like it.
Just breaking your stones, buddy.
I love it. Well, fellas, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you want to say where people can find all of your work?
Please find me at Tommy Bechtold on all platforms. Please watch my podcast with my friends Whitney Van Lanningham and MT Mastertainment, MT Guardians of the Galaxy. I say watch my podcast because we release it on YouTube, but it's a podcast format. And and you never know when I'll be back on the Pod Awakens. That's all. You never know.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
If you want to follow this show at Pod Awakens on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all that good stuff, you can rate and review us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And like and subscribe, like we said at the top of the show.
Yes, sir.